K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Different than what you're used to, but I'm still here. It is Tutel Nuanez broadcasting to you live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Colter Nuanez in studio, rolling solo today. Ryan Tutel enjoyed himself a day on the lake, although I talked to him earlier. Sounds like it's cloudy and overcast up in Polson, just like it is here in Missoula. It's a little bit muggy outside, a little bit interesting weather. It's supposed to be 95 degrees today. That's what the Jack Weatherman told me, at least. And instead, it's 80 and muggy and humid, and maybe some rain on the horizon. Don't really know, but we're still waiting for those dog days of summer, and they just seem like they're not coming. It'll be interesting to see how this affects college football as we get down into fall camp, because that's right on the horizon. We're approaching about 1 month until kickoff for both the Bobcats and the Grizzlies, and we'll talk a lot about that in today's show. But these cooler temperatures actually could be good for the boys that'll be engaging in fall camp here pretty soon. We'll see. Haven't had the hot temperatures like we are used to, but I hope Ryan is enjoying his time at the lake. He will be back in the saddle tomorrow. It's that time of year, man. I recruited pretty hard today. I recruited all our favorite friends here at Tutel Nuanez, and had a little bit of a problem finding some people, but today's show will be good nonetheless. Do have some good guests joining us. Anthony Knockreiner from up there, KGEZ in Kalispell. Ryan's in the Flathead, so I went to the Flathead to recruit. Anthony will come on and join us. We'll talk some Shrine Game. He was at the East-West Shrine Game in Butte over the weekend, and he also has some other things to talk about, including a list that he released a couple weeks ago, his top 10 players in Class AA football, which I think is pertinent to you here in Missoula. That'll be part of the Montana Football Hour. The Montana Football Hour will also include the latest accolade for Dante Olson, and this one is a big one. He is on not only the Buck Buchanan list as expected, he is also on the 35th Annual Buckus Award list. He's the only FCS player, only the second ever to be on that list from the University of Montana. In the Montana Football Hour, we will also hear from Jeff Choate as well. Our interview from the Big Sky Kickoff in Spokane a week and a half ago. We shared with you both our Grizz interviews, but one with Dalton Sneed and Dante Olson, the other one with Bobby Houck. This week, we'll share the Bobcat side of things as we get ready for college football. Coach Choate, articulate and interesting, as always, and his team has some big-time expectations. Also, a couple things to talk about when it comes to numbers. Montana has their hallowed number 37, a number that's passed down from Montanan to Montanan, a number that has a ton of tradition in it, that has been worn by some of the all-time greatest Grizz. Last week, Hero Sports, they've been doing a countdown of the best player to wear each number 99 through number 1 in the FCS, and they named Bryce Sterk their top number 37. He is a defensive end for the Bobcats. Controversy when you talk about the rival of the team who has number 37 as their prestigious number. And then on top of that, Montana State now enacting a new tradition, number 41, which will be passed down in remembrance, partially at least, of Montana being the 41st state in the Union. The last 9 years, a Montana native has worn number 41, including Brad Daly and Grant Collins. Now this year, the number bestowed upon safety Braden Conkle. So we'll talk a little bit about that tradition as well after we hear from Coach Choate. And then to wrap up the Montana Football Hour, the in-state recruiting battle rages on. Tommy Malott from Butte, Montana, he is committed to the Bobcats. And that's a little bit of a, I shouldn't say surprise, but he was a guy that was kind of 50-50, getting recruited really hard from both ends of the spectrum. Both the Cats and the Grizz wanted the Butte High quarterback, and his commitment to the Cats, that's definitely a pendulum swing when you talk about the in-state recruiting battle. So we're talking about that to wrap up the Montana Football Hour. And then in the second hour, We're going to hear from Jason Alvin. He's the new voice of the Bobcats. He's down in L.A., but we're not going to talk just Cats. We're going to talk mostly just about the Big Sky Conference in general. He was at the Big Sky kickoff last week as well, and I just want to get his perspective because he's been a sidelines guy down there at Montana State the last couple of years, and now he's in the chair as the voice of the Bobcats, and I know he learned a lot during his time in Spokane at the Big Sky kickoff, so just want to get some of his impressions for what he thinks of the league. And then we'll have a little bit of news as well. As you guys know, I'm on the board of directors for the Montana Football Hall of Fame. And during the Shrine Game over the weekend, we announced all our inductees for this upcoming class, and it's a star-studded list. So excited to share that stuff with you guys. And we'll also talk a little bit Missoula Bruins hockey, and we'll talk a little bit of Missoula Osprey baseball as well. The first half, all of a sudden, wrapping up pretty quick here for the Missoula Osprey, and they're hosting the Idaho Falls Chuckers, basically with the first half title on the line. So a big homestand here in Missoula for the Missoula Osprey. That's our show outlook. Today, we'll just say it's brought to us by Skyline Sports because, I'm the one running the show. SkylineSportsMT.com every day, every season. Go check it out for your big and best coverage in the Big Sky Conference. And like I said, I forgot the very intro part of this whole thing. We're broadcasting live to you from the Kurtz Polaris studios. I told you that, but I got to remind you that July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. You got about 8 or 9 days left here in July to go celebrate that 30th birthday with Kurtz Polaris. They're celebrating this month by offering 30% off. That's right, really, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna, or Beta dirt bikes, and any pontoon boat. Some restrictions may apply. See Kurtz Polaris for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month long for that 30th anniversary sale. If you want to find us online, 1029ESPN.com. That's where you'll find the stream. The stream's presented by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. And if you want to give me a call, if you want to get in on this, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV
Anthony is on the line whenever
hotline,
you're ready.
And that's where we go right now, to the Rangich Brothers RV hotline. And welcome in our good buddy, friend of the show, and a great broadcaster himself, Anthony Knockrider from up there in Kalispell, KGEZ. He's the host of the Knock On Sports. Anthony, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm great, Colter. I will say this, man. I could pretty much jump out of a hot pot right now because I look like a lobster. I got sunburned this past weekend.
Oh, buddy, I got a bad one a couple weekends ago, too. See, that's what happens when you don't have the typical Montana summer. We haven't even got to see really the sun and have the hot weather here in a little while.
Well, I don't know about you, man, but I was over in Butte this past weekend. I got there on Wednesday, and the sun didn't stop beating down on me because I was playing golf on Thursday. Friday I was at media days, and then Saturday was the game out in the parade. So right now, I'll tell you what, lobster and me, I don't know if you can tell the difference.
Well, get yourself some aloe vera, my friend. It'll be all good. You mentioned going to the mining city, spending some time in Butte. So you were there Wednesday through Saturday. So is that the longest amount of time you've spent in Butte?
Yeah, I would say so because most of the time I don't get to stay anywhere because, usually if I'm in Butte, it's for a football game or a basketball game, and I'm there for a couple hours, not a couple days. So technically I wasn't in Butte. I was staying with some friends at the Fairmont Hot Springs, which was a lot of fun. Funny story. So I've never had hot springs. Usually in Florida, the heat's good enough for us. Jumping in a hot tub doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
So I'm going around the Fairmont, and I'm looking for a room with a bunch of rocks in hot water, and then I asked somebody, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for the hot springs, and just point to a pool. I'm just like, oh, well, I was looking for rocks. I mean, I had a wrong idea about hot springs.
Well, the Fairmont is a great destination. It's a fun place for sure. But do yourself a favor. Go find yourself a little natural hot springs that's not necessarily the pool kind, the ones that are just kind of on the side of the river. There's some pretty epic ones. That is a great Montana experience. Did you get to check out Butte any other way, or were you just kicking it over there in Fairmont?
I got to check out Metals Bank and the sports restaurant there, which was pretty cool. That's a pretty big door, not going to lie.
Indeed.
So I got to experience that. Got to hang out a little bit at Tex Field. Got to go play golf over at the Butte Country Club. And I'll tell you what, man, those greens are they took advantage of me, and they were not merciful at all. So, but it was really fun to play that course and kind of play a different course than the ones up here. So kind of cool to get that experience and be in Butte. Because I mean, that's the great thing about the East-West Shrine game this year is that game being so close. Because it's really the only Western city. Now, I know Montana's big and it's not split that way, but, when it's in Great Falls or it's in Laurel, which it will be next year around Billings, it's tough to get over there and catch these all-star games, which is really, really fun. So that whole experience was really cool. I really wasn't sure what to expect, but Saturday, going to the parade, hanging out in downtown Butte was fun. Seeing all the people, seeing all the kids on the wagons and everything, that was a lot of fun. And the game itself, I mean, that atmosphere was awesome. I mean, I've gone to a couple All-Star games in Florida, and the atmospheres don't even match that with what I saw at the East-West Shrine game Saturday night. I mean, that place was packed. You got tailgating all over the place. I mean, it was awesome.
Butte, Montana does it best. Butte, America does it best in a lot of different ways. If you are a sports fan and you're ever traveling on I-90, go check into Meadows Bank. Ray Euland and the boys, they do it really well there. It's a great little sports bar. But also, you just go check out that Coach's Corner. They have all the coaches that have Butte roots that have risen to the highest of heights. Guys like Sam Jankovic, who went on to be the athletic director at the University of Miami, all the way down through guys like Paul Clabo and Ron Lebsock, and a bunch of guys with the last name Hauk, and then, of course, guys like Jim Sweeney and Sonny Holland and Sonny Lubick, and some of the great guys that trace their roots back to Butte. It's a really cool piece of history and a really great place. And Butte itself is just so rich with history as well. But, Anthony, the 73rd annual East-West Shrine game, and I'm glad to hear there's a good turnout because this East-West Shrine game has been touted as one of, if not the most lucrative fundraising events for the Shriners Hospital in all the country. It's one of the top all-star football games in the country in terms of the funds that they raise for the Shriners Children's Hospital in Spokane. And I think that's really cool. And it's always one of the great events of the summer, kind of the peak of summer, that then gets us kicked off into really thinking that football is upon us. The East posted a 28-22 win in the game. So you were there to break it down for us. I know a bunch of the Fairfield kids, including Derek Simons and Ryder Meyer, had great days. How'd the game go? It seemed like it was a pretty back and forth. It seemed like it was a pretty good contest.
It was a really great contest, and the funny part about it too, it was the fact that I learned the East for the first time in the entire history of that Shrine game won in Butte on Saturday. It's the first time East has ever won in Butte. So, yeah, East comes away with a big victory. Here's the deal, and it's kind of what you would expect with an all-star game, but West just took a little bit longer to get into motion. I mean, you talk about a couple big turnovers. I mean, essentially the West they got the first touchdown off of a muff punt, and that's what really kind of hurt both teams. They hurt the East, but hurt the West a little bit more because I think they had two muff punts in the first half. That's what really did them in. Because the defenses were great. The defenses were really good. The offenses really picked up in the second half, especially for the West. But Mitch Norlson, I mean, the overall team MVP or offensive MVP for the game from Lewistown was just outstanding, and that was ultimately the difference. The West just did not have the passing game that the East did. Ryan Lenort, great athlete. I mean, he was a really fun quarterback to watch last season. Jaden McNeil did some really great things, but those were guys that were more dual threat, and they weren't as polished as passers as Norlson was for the East. And so that, I think, was the definitive factor because the West wasn't able to open up the back end of the East defense until the second half with McNeil and Ort because, I mean, the East knew what was coming. You have Preston Blaine, Blake Counts, and Colton McPhee running the football. I know the West really did want to run the football, but the East stacked the box, and just because they didn't get the passing game going early, that really put the West behind the eight ball on top of the turnovers that were compiled on that as well. But the West did a great job in the second half, making it a 21-19 game. I know a lot of people are talking about the flop on social media. I'm sure you saw it as well.
Yeah.
But great game overall. East got the win. I give them all the praise. They got the job done. They won the football game. But again, a great all-star game and another game that I think really is paramount in that we keep, because I know another storyline out of this East-West Shrine game is whether or not we're going to see some of our top football players play if they're going to UM or MSU or some of our other colleges, whether or not they're going to be withheld because a couple weeks from now they start their own college football camp.
That's an interesting point because now, this day and age, with the prevalence of summer school and the fact that both the Montana schools, both the Bobcats and the Grizzlies, can use a little bit of aid in terms of scholarships to get their guys on campus early. get them into summer school, sort of required training. I know that the almost 100% of both Montana and Montana State's rosters have been in Bozeman and Missoula, respectively, over the last couple of weeks. And freshmen, I know at Montana State reported on June 22nd. I think it was probably about a similar date for the kids here in Missoula at Montana. And you're right. I think that there's some kids that, if you're going to report early and you're going to be a part of summer workouts going into your freshman year, and you're going to be training on that level, and you're already a part of the program, I think that definitely deters kids from then wanting to go play a game in late July. But I do think that it's for such a good cause. It's a culmination of everybody's high school careers. It has so much tradition behind it, so you'll be remembered for a long time if you have a big game in the Shrine Game. So I think that I agree with you. I think all those things are important. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because in the Mondac game, in the Badlands Bowl, the East-West, or the Montana versus North Dakota All-Star game, Joe Olson, Montana State commit, who's signed with the Bobcats out of Bozeman High, he tore his ACL, and that's a big bummer, for him. That's going to set him back going into his freshman year. You wonder, he's going to for sure redshirt, but you wonder maybe he even gray shirts to delay his eligibility. We'll see. But what's your stance on this, Anthony? Because you said you thought that this should continue on because it is for a good cause and it is a fun event and it is something that these kids will remember forever. So kind of elaborate on that. Why do you think this is important, and how do you hope the future of All-Star Games plays out?
Well, I think ultimately you got to look at this. Is it going to continue to be a trend? I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming trend. When you look at something that's similar, when you look at the bowl games for college football, you look at the Christian McCaffreys, the Leonard Fournettes, yeah, they pulled out. Some of probably the bigger names, they might pull out, but you got still a lot of really talented football players that come into this game, and it's a good game. Again, not trying to disbar the Mondac game, but that's a blowout every time.
Right.
And so if I'm going to pick an all-star game to play in, it's probably the East-West Shrine Game. It's Montana kids versus Montana kids. There's a lot of pride on both sides. The East was loud. The West was loud. I went to the banquet. The West was definitely overwhelming, obviously, because they're in a Western city. But, the East was still there making noise, too. I look at this game, and I think it's going to continue to grow. I think you're just going to see, 5, maybe 6 kids overall from both teams that are either, expecting to be big players for Montana or Montana State. They may not play, but at the same time, you still have such a deep talent pool here in Montana that while those kids may not, that gives another kid that maybe was just on the fringe an opportunity, and they can make the most of it.
You mentioned Lewistown quarterback Mitch Norsley, and he threw 3 touchdowns. He's the game's overall MVP. Derek Simmons from Fairfield, he caught a pair of those touchdowns. Ryder Meyer from Fairfield as well. He's a future Grizz. He scored an 8-yard touchdown run in the second quarter and caught a 39-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, which proved to be the deciding score. First of all, I want to ask you about Ryder Meyer. What did you think of the kid after seeing him up close and personal, and what do you think his prospects are as he now transitions and takes his talents to the Grizz?
He's an impressive athlete. That was the first time I ever got to see him. All I ever got to do was read about him. He's just an impressive athlete. The kid's got speed. The kid's got instinct. And he's not afraid to shy away from putting his head and putting his face mask in the pile. So, this is a good football player. Obviously comes from a great family. His dad was the head coach for the East team. So, again, this kid was just fun to watch and fun to watch for the East team and how they matched up against the West. And so, the West team had him bottled up a little bit early. Meyer was able to break free in the second and third quarters. Passing game helped as well. And it was really just fun to watch him. I think he's got great prospects. I think the only thing that might hurt Meyer is he's a little bit on the smaller side. And again, it's just that size. You're talking about a lot of big kids. I don't know. Do they have, maybe besides Gabe Sulser, I don't know if Montana has anybody else under 6 feet. But either way, this kid is going to be a player. I don't know if he starts right away. Don't think so. But this kid's going to be special. And I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch on Saturdays for Grizz fans.
Any other standouts? It was funny because coming into this game, almost all the future Bobcats and Grizzlies were playing for the West, so I thought that maybe meant that'd be a decided favorite, but instead the East gets the win. On either side of this thing, anybody that you liked that you saw that maybe re-emphasized an opinion you had on them, or a new opinion, somebody you saw for the first time that was impressive?
I'm going to go to Bobcats. Alex Johnson. That kid just really, really does a great job. Again, he was a hitter, instinctful, some great plays, was all over the field for the West defense and really made some big plays for him. Was a part of the first fumble that coughed up on the first turnover where the West scored. So he was big in the fact that he was continuing to make plays. So Alex Johnson was a big one for me. Holden Sampson, tough to evaluate offensive linemen in a game, but from when I talked to all the West players during the week and leading up to the game, all of them had great things to say about Holden Sampson as an offensive lineman. I know Cutler also had some positive things to say about Sampson as well. So the Cats are going to get a guy that's going to be playing offensive line for them. That's going to be a guy that I think starts. Obviously, I think he still needs probably a year into that nutrition program and weightlifting program, and then he can be a guy that factors into a rotation. But, I mean, he was really impressive. I saw him, when they played Flathead, of course. But those two guys from Helena really impressed me. And then I'm also going to lean back to, Anthony Jones and Blake Counts from Flathead. Mm-hmm. Blake had some powerful runs. I thought he had a big boy run in the game as well, knocking over 3 East players as he got the first down conversion on 4th down and 2. But Blake, to me, he really impressed me as well. But those two guys, the Norliston kid from Lewistown, I actually didn't know a whole lot about him, but seeing him play and make the big plays and make the throws that he made really was an impressive one to me. I know it's easy in a cop-out because he was also the MVP, so of course he was impressive. But as a guy I didn't know anything about, I just was, wow, okay, and he played a lot, and he played really well, and he got the East team the W.
Anthony Knockreiner joining us on the Rangich Brothers RV phone line as we march through the second Montana Football Hour for 2019, presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. Testament to the kids you just talked about, because I think Holden Sampson, Alex Johnson, as well as Rylan Ort and Jace DeWalt, 2 Sentinel kids, 2 Helena kids were the captains in this game for the West, and I think that's a testament to those kids and the program that they come from, and all 4 of those guys going on to play football at the next level. Anthony, you mentioned a couple of the Flathead kids. I know you are the voice of the Flathead Braves, so you cover those guys up close and personal, and you're more familiar with them than maybe anybody else. Anthony Jones, where's he going to school?
He's going to be joining Coach Kyle Sampson at Montana Tech, so he's going to be playing there. And with the East-West Shrine game, I mean, he made some great catches. I think he had 5 for 63 yards. He was making some great plays, and he doesn't shy away from contact. I could definitely hear him talking on the field, just like wide receivers do. So I really look forward to him and his career at Montana Tech. I think he's going to be fun to watch, and he's going to be a great football player for the Ore Diggers in the NAIA. Would love to have seen him in a Grazer Cats uniform, but I could say the same for Blake Counts as well. But I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch over at Montana Tech. He's going to be a special player there.
Flathead played for the state championship a year ago, and I think, 5 of those kids are going to go play at Montana Tech? Is that right?
3 of them are, and then Sebastian Cook, the offensive lineman, is going to play Carroll, and I think that's it at the moment.
Okay, so 4 guys on the frontier. Okay. Is Sebastian Cook, is he the kid that was in the picture with the Flathead guys that was the offensive lineman, number 55?
Yep, yes, sir.
That kid has a great frame. I was surprised when I had not seen him in person. When I looked at that picture, I was thinking, man, that guy looks like a Division I offensive lineman. So looks like a lot of more talent going to the Frontier Conference. As always, that seems to always be the case. Well, Anthony, I'll get you out of here on this. I want to ask you a little bit about your top 10 players in Class AA that you released a couple weeks ago. It's been an interesting list to follow, but take us through it. I mean, who are some of your top guys coming back in Class AA from across the state of Montana?
Well, I mean, you have to start with Kenneth Eiden. I mean, the kid out of Bozeman. I mean, this guy's already taken unofficial visits to South Dakota State, Iowa, Oregon State. I mean, I've seen the pictures. I follow him. I mean, he has just been an impressive athlete. He's got the frame. I mean, he had 21 sacks last year. That's impressive in itself. I mean, you got guys in the NFL that are doing that now, but you don't see many high school football players getting to the quarterback 21 times in a season, and so he's just a really impressive dude. He's going to be a junior this season. He's going to be back. I mean, from all the things that I'm hearing when I talked to Coach Weshy a couple weeks ago, this guy has the same potential as Will Disley, who's now playing for the Seattle Seahawks, who was the Washington product. I mean, that's the type of kid this kid is, and so I saw his verified combine numbers. They were impressive as well. I think he won the L drill over there at Dane Fletcher's, the Pit. So he's my number one guy just because he can do so many things. He can run the football, he can catch the football, and he can tackle the quarterback, get after the running back as well, and cause havoc on any given offensive line. Now, you also look at Tommy Malott. He was my number 2 player. Tommy just, obviously, as we know, committed to the Bobcats. And so, I mean, he ran a 4.64. And I was actually surprised by this because if you look at the verified combine numbers, he's tied, I believe it's with Wandell from Park. He had a 4.64. He's fast. I mean, I knew this kid who had speed, but to be the number one guy, he beat out Chance Sheldon Allen out here who ran the 100, beat him by 100th of a second. And so a lot with that speed. He won also a couple other drills. He graded out as the best player. He had 5 points better. He was a 90 overall from the Pitt verified combine. So Tommy Mellott is going to be a player. He's got a great arm. I mean, he almost had a total of over 4,000 yards, nearly rushing for 1,000 and throwing for over 3,000. A season ago, and he's the reason why a lot of people are talking about Butte as a potential favorite in the Western AA Conference this year. So, I mean, he's a big-time guy. And then you look at McKade O'Reilly. I mean, I would not want to tackle that guy. He's big. He's got a huge frame. He's fast. I mean, he's a great linebacker. But on top of that, I mean, he can play running back. Maybe he doesn't have that, that burn you speed, like he'll just take it, to the house. He doesn't quite have that gear. He can still take it to the house. He just doesn't have that impressive, like he'll run by everybody and increase the distance. But at the same time, that guy is just going to make you pay if you let him across the line of scrimmage. I mean, the only way you can really stop him is if you don't let him pass the line of scrimmage. You have to tackle that man in the backfield. Otherwise, he's getting 5 yards every single time.
I know one other guy that popped up on your list was Raleigh Wooster, and that's a guy that everybody around Missoula is definitely wondering about because he was a guy that committed to the Grizz basketball team as a sophomore at Missoula Hellgate. At that time, Missoula Hellgate did not have football. They were still bringing the program back to a varsity level. And then a year ago, Raleigh Wooster led Hellgate to a couple different wins, and he was in studio with us, and he said, hey, we've played in the state tournament in basketball multiple times, played for the state championship, including they did play for the state championship a year ago, losing to Bozeman High on a buzzer beater. Missoula Hellgate did. But he said the biggest thrill of my sports career was leading Hellgate to a win to snap a years-long losing streak. You've seen Raleigh play both football and basketball. What do you think he's a better prospect in?
I think he's a better basketball player. I mean, there's nobody that can really stop Raleigh. I mean, every time I've called games for him, the kid's averaged double digits. And Raleigh's just got a sweet game to it. He can shoot from the outside. He's got the body to go inside. I mean, I think he's a better basketball prospect. But, again, he's also a great football player. The kid's – I don't see him as a college quarterback, but he's so dynamic that he needs to be at the most important position on offense, and that for Hellgate is the quarterback position because he can run the football, he can throw the football, he can take hits if he needs to as well, and he plays defense and tackles. I think he was either close to 100, if not more, tackles last season for the Knights. I think he could probably be a college football player if he wants to be, but I think he's a better basketball player. I mean, the kid, he's really tough to stop. I don't think anybody has been able to really stop Raleigh Worcester except maybe Raleigh Worcester. So, I mean, that guy is just a talent in himself. I think he can play either one if he wants to, but he's going to be a really good football player this upcoming season, and I think he's going to be a factor into whether or not Hellgate wins 4 or 5 games and maybe gets into the mix. Could possibly be an upset team by the end of the year for Hellgate because every team makes the playoffs. So there's always that possibility of an upset, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if Raleigh Worcester not only leads them, ending a year, you mentioned a years-long losing streak, to maybe getting their first playoff win this season.
He is Anthony Knockreiner, the host of the Knock On Sports, KGEZ in Kalispell, 600 AM or 96.5 FM on 6 to 8 p.m. Does a great job covering high school sports, college sports, and everything else around the state of Montana. So go check him out. If you're not in the Kalispell area, you're one of our statewide listeners. He always podcasts his show, too, so you can get him at the Knock On Sports on Twitter, and he always posts all his podcasts there as well. Anthony, you're the man. Thanks for the update. Appreciate you joining us.
Colter, always a pleasure to talk sports with you, man. Looking forward to doing it again soon.
Hey, appreciate it. It is the Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford in Missoula. Lithia Ford wants to thank everybody from coming out to the Ford Ranger launch party. So many wonderful people came out. Look for more launch parties from the new Escape and Explorer in coming months. Just announced at Lithia Ford in Missoula is the Hurry Up and Save sales event. Customers can enjoy 20% estimated savings on America's best-selling pickup, the Ford F-150. They can also choose to receive 0% financing for 72 months on the 2009 Ford F-150 for well-qualified buyers. Additionally, these savings are available on the 2019 Escape, Edge, and Expedition. Lithia Ford across from Walmart on 93 in Missoula. The Montana Football Hour marches on. We're going to talk some Dante Olson on the Butkus and Buck Buchanan list. We're going to hear from Jeff Choate, and we're going to talk about a couple different number, traditions, and no controversy as well. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift this summer or any time of year. If you are traveling, bring a gift that is distinctly Montana and give your loved ones some of the best spices anywhere around. From the Alpine Touch Pick 4 Spice Pack to the All-Purpose Twin Pack to the mouth-watering sunflower shoots to Alpine Touch gift cards. Alpine Touch makes the perfect Montana present. Available at retail locations around the state or online for a limited time. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hi, boys and girls. Ryan Tutel
And Colter Nuanez.
from Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio, from your very favorite Tutel and Nuanez podcast, and now officially Gracious Mercy on television statewide.
That's right. We've been doing a radio show and a podcast since August of 2017, and now it's time for us to expand our reach into statewide television on SWX.
We're on SWX every weekday from 4 to 6 live on your televisions. It's available on channel 199 on Spectrum Cable or on 23.3 on your antenna television. And you can download the Watch SWX app and get us that way on your phones and devices as well.
And of course, we'll still be right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio from Missoula and the Bitterroot Valley. And as always, you can find the podcast, the live stream, and everything else you need, 1029ESPN.com.
Colter, do you think that we're spreading ourselves too thin? Are we going to saturate these people and they're just going to start hating us, the inevitable backlash of the great heights to which we have now attained?
No chance. Tutel Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Colter Nuanez, 129 ESPN Missoula. Behind two touchdown catches from Fairfield product Derek Simmons, the East posted a 28-22 win in the 73rd annual East-West Shrine game in Butte on Saturday night. Future Grizz Ryder Meyer, himself a Fairfield native, scored an 8-yard touchdown run in the second quarter and caught a 39-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter for the East's final score with 6.5 minutes to play. Lewistown product Mitchell Norsley threw 3 touchdowns to earn overall MVP honors. The win gave the East a 41-32 all-time lead in the series. During halftime of the Shrine game, the Montana Football Hall of Fame announced 9 men for the 4th annual induction ceremony in Billings in March. The list includes former Grizz and Buffalo Bills standout Steve Okanuski, former Montana Miami Dolphins kicker Dan Carpenter, former Montana State and Tennessee Titans wide receiver Ken Amato, former Bobcat quarterback and CFL MVP Travis Lulay, and former Bozeman High and Washington Redskins top draft pick Shane Collins in the player category. In the support category, former UM and NFL coach and scout Bob Beers, as well as longtime football broadcaster Brett Musburger will be inducted. And in the legacy category, Victor Lindskog of Roundup, Stanford, and the Philadelphia Eagles will also be inducted. And finally, Butte High standout Tommy Malott is a Bobcat. The athlete chose the Cats over Montana, Montana Tech, Carroll College, and Montana Western.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Gotta love the Queens of the Stone Age rocking us back in Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Colter Nuanez in studio. Ryan Tutel, he's out for the day. Long weekend up at the lake, hanging out with his buds and his family, so hopefully he's enjoying himself. I hope he's floating in the middle of the lake on a noodle, soaking up the sun, having a great time. I might have to take some vacation one of these days. Ryan's left behind dry a lot lately. I miss him. As always, broadcasting to you from the Kurtz Polaris studios. And remember, July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. Really, 30 years. And they're celebrating this month by offering 30%. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bikes, or any pontoon boat. Some restrictions may apply. See Kurtz Polaris for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month long for Kurt's 30th anniversary sale. If you want to find us on Twitter, at Gus Dutel, he's not here right now, but you should still go check him out on Twitter. Entertainment, good retweets, all the good things. You want to find us, the station handle, at 1029 ESPN. There you can find details on what's going on the show each day, the various giveaways that we got going on, and a variety of other things, including our remote broadcast. Remember, we're doing a series of 8 more remotes. Last week, we kicked off this series down at Katie O'Keefe's, broadcasting Tutel Nuanez every Thursday for the next 8 weeks across Missoula. This week, we're going to be at Fuddruckers from 4 to 6 p.m. So come on down, have yourself a burger. All these remotes presented to you by Windermere Brothers Hefeweizen. Windermere Brothers Brewing, rather, but Windermere Brothers Hefeweizen is the beer that they are the experts on. It's the original American craft Hefeweizen. It's one of the first craft beers in America, and a beer that definitely changed the game. And Windermere Brothers Brewing has been kind enough to give us 18 total tickets, 9 pairs of tickets. We're going to be giving away a pair of tickets at each of the remote broadcasts across Missoula when Montana takes on the Oregon Ducks, September 14th in Eugene, Oregon. So come hang out with us. It was fun last week, and I'm sure this is going to build some momentum. We want each and every one of you to come out. And remember, the first $100 worth of Windermere Brothers beer is on us. We got you covered. Windermere's got you covered, in fact. And we were drinking some of the Windermere Brothers Hefeweizen cans. I guess the patrons were drinking some of the Windermere Brothers Hefeweizen cans last week, and it was a fun little deal down at Katie O'Keefe. So come check us out at Fuddruckers out there on North Reserve this week. And then remember, the only non-Thursday event we have is going to be Wednesday, July 31st at the Desperado Sports Tavern and Grill. We're going to do a Wing It Wednesday live for the first time. We've been giving away a dozen wings once an hour every Wednesday since I started doing this show. And the Desperado's been with us at ESPN Missoula since we first launched this thing almost 5 years ago. They're one of our great friends of this show, and so we'll be broadcasting from there on July 31st. So that'll be fun, too. Maybe you can come win some wings and eat them right there while watching Tutel Nuanez live. So these remotes will be great, and we need all you guys to come out. You can register around town, various locations. Go to our website, 1029ESPN.com, if you want a list of all the participating establishments. All you got to do is put your name in the box. We draw for tickets at the remote broadcast. And if you're the winner, we're sending you 2 tickets to the Montana-Oregon football game in Eugene, Oregon, September 14th at one of the iconic stadiums in all of college football, Autzen Stadium. So be sure to stay tuned for all the details about all of that. Before we get to Jeff Choate, Montana State head football coach, got to talk about Dante Olson. The accolades continue to pile up for Dante Olson, as they always do. He is certainly going to be a consensus All-American like he was a year ago. He is already been named the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year in the preseason. And today, unsurprisingly, after being a finalist, one of the top 3 vote getters in the Buck Buchanan Award, which is given out to the top defensive football player in the football championship subdivision, Olson was named to the Buck Buchanan watch list earlier today. That in itself, not necessarily surprising. Actually, it's not surprising at all. It's straight up exactly what everybody expected. And Olson should be a favorite for it should be a favorite for that award, no doubt. The other one, though, that is even more prestigious because this is on an absolute national level. Dante Olson, Montana senior linebacker, onto the Butkus Award watch list as well. This is the 35th annual Butkus Award, which is given to the nation's top Division I linebacker. Olson, the only FCS player to make the list. He's only the second player in Montana history, although he is the second player in as many years to be named to the prestigious list. If you remember correctly, Josh Buss was named last year. Devin White from Louisiana State, LSU for us layman's. He was the Butkus Award winner last season before being selected 5th overall in the NFL draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of the great combines of all time by Devin White, and he's a guy that I expect to make a huge impact for the Bucs day one. But to be in that company, pretty darn cool. Since 1984, the Butkus Foundation and its 51-person selection panel have honored the nation's 51 best linebackers at the professional, college, and high school levels. The 51, it mirrors the legendary number 51 that was worn by Dick Butkus, who was recognized by NFL Films as the best defensive player in football history, one of the greatest linebackers to ever play the game. The Collegiate Butkus Award watch list includes candidates from 39 different universities, including returning finalist Dylan Moses of Alabama, who won the 2016 High School Butkus Award, and returning semifinalist Marcus Bailey. Olsen, just to be on this list, a great honor, but he deserves it because he's coming off of one of the most productive seasons in the history of both Montana and Big Sky Conference football. He had a school record and FCS best 151 total tackles. He wasn't just a tackling machine, though. He did a lot more than that. So very impressive on Dante Olsen's part last season, and huge expectations coming into this season. But if there's anybody that can handle it, I think it's Dante Olsen. You know what we're going to do here? I want to share this interview with Jeff Choate, but I want to talk about a couple other things first. So we're going to do Jeff Choate next segment. Stick it right here, though, because we do have a couple other things to briefly talk about when it comes to Montana State football. Ryan Tutel and I were at the Big Sky Conference kickoff a little over a week ago in Spokane, big media conference where you get to mingle and interview with all the head coaches in the Big Sky Conference, as well as a pair of players from each Big Sky Conference school. Pretty hard to get in FaceTime with all 39 interview subjects during the 3-hour allotted period. It's an hour and a half for the coaches, hour and a half for the players. Gets a little hectic, a little sporadic, but we were able to catch up with almost everybody, especially all the contenders, both players and coaches. Like we talked about last week coming out of that Big Sky Conference kickoff, I think it's a pretty cut and dry tiered league. I think that it's Montana, Montana State, Eastern Washington, Weber State, and UC Davis, not necessarily in that order. I actually voted it Eastern Washington, UC Davis, Montana State, Weber State, Montana. That's the order I voted it in, but I think that top 5 is in flux, but I do think those are the 5 teams that will be in the playoff mix. And if things go according to plan and everybody takes care of business, I expect at least 4 of those 5 teams, and maybe all 5. It just depends on the record that the Cats and the Grizz have going into Cat Grizz. But if they can both be sitting there at 7-4 or 8-3, I think that then not only the winner of that game, but maybe both teams get in. But at the very least, I think that the winner of that game will get to the 8-win mark and get in. Remember, it is a 12-game season that happens once every 5 years in the FCS, so there is an extra game. So the magic number has been forever kind of that 7-4 mark, but we have seen a couple Missouri Valley teams get in at 6-5 the last couple years, but that has not happened yet for a Big Sky team. But this year, I think it's going to be one up. I think you're going to have to be 7-5 or 8-4 to get one of those at-large bids into the playoffs. The Big Sky just gets the one automatic bid. But coming out of that Big Sky kickoff, a couple announcements, including a couple that have to do with jersey numbers. And this is sort of interesting. Sam Herder from Hero Sports, who we had on the ESPN Roundtable last week, is doing a great job covering the FCS on a national level. And he's done a countdown from 99 through 1, naming the best player at each number from the FCS. And there's been a couple Montana guys that have made the list so far, both from Montana, Montana State. Kevin Cassis was number 85 from Montana State. And then this last week, number 37 was Bryce Sterk, Montana State defensive end. And I think Bryce Sterk probably is the best player in the country that wears number 37. But it's been a controversial decision just because of the nerve that it's struck with Grizz fans, because as we know, number 37 is the hallowed jersey for the Montana Grizzlies, a jersey that's been passed down from player to player for more than a generation, about 30 years since Kurt Paulson first passed it on. But great players like Tim Houck and Jason Crebo and C.J. Pitcher, Lauren Utterback, Jordy Tripp, Zach Wagaman, and a lineage of others have worn this jersey. And now Jesse Sims wears the jersey. And I've heard all sorts of arguments about how it's tough to say that Sterk is better than Sims. Just from a completely objective perspective, I think that Sterk is, quite frankly, I think he's just a better athlete. I think he's a better pass rusher. I think he makes way more plays. And I think that, a pundit or I guess somebody that objects that opinion would say, well, Jesse Sims has been playing out of position for most of his career as a Grizzly. I totally agree with that. I think that Sims is a natural, strong defensive end. Instead, he's been playing D-tackle. He's had to play in multiple different schemes, including a scheme under Jason Seymour, former Montana defensive coordinator, where the responsibilities to make plays were almost non-existent for the inside guys. It was basically just get upfield, cause havoc, take up blockers, get your guy out, create gaps, let the linebackers run. The linebackers are going to bring a ton of pressure, and that's what they did under Seymour. I think that was why it was sort of a feast or famine defense. And then last year, Montana's running a lot of other unorthodox stuff, and Sims had to play out of position quite a bit too in an odd man front. If Montana can get some elevator production from some of its younger guys like Alex Gubner or Eli Alford or Braden Deming, I think that Sims could bump out to the edge, and I think that could really give him an advantage in terms of playing the proper position. And in turn, his playmaking would probably go up. All that said, Stirk made more splash plays and had more tackles for loss and more sacks than Sims has in his whole career last year in his first year as a starter. I think that anybody that's watched Bryce Stirk, they know the kind of athlete he is. I mean, he really is just bigger and faster than almost everybody in the league at his position. He's 6'5", 255 pounds, and he's an animal. I mean, he's a tremendous athlete, and he looks like an FBS drop-down. That's what they look like. And I think that, honestly, I think that Bryce Stirk got robbed last year. I thought he should have been a first-team All-League guy. Led the Big Sky Conference in sacks and tackles for loss. Got second-team All-League. I thought that he deserved first-team All-League over a couple of the edge guys that got it over him. Particularly, I didn't think Weber State deserved two guys, and I didn't think Keenan Williams from Eastern Washington deserved to be on the first team. I thought that Bryce Stirk deserved to be up there on the first team. And so, I know that there's always going to be the Cat-Grizz rivalry, and people are always going to holler back and forth at each other over this kind of stuff, which I do find entertaining, no doubt. But just coming from somebody that's covered and watched both guys, and I think both these kids are great kids. I think they're tremendously hard workers. I think that they're great for their respective programs. I mean, Jesse Sims couldn't work harder, and he couldn't be a nicer kid. He's a kid that I've covered since he was in high school, and he's earned the chance to wear number 37, and he's earned the chance to be a standout guy. And I hope he gets that chance to play in a position that he deserves. All that said, and this is not a slight to him because I do think he's a really good player, Bryce Stirk is an elite player in the Big Sky Conference and an elite player on the FCS level. I think he's one of the most talented guys in the league. I think he's one of the most talented guys in the country. And I think that with him playing up and down the line, Montana State expects him to play some strong end, some buck end, maybe even some three-tech on the inside. I think he has a chance to have a gigantic senior year, and I think he's going to land on some NFL radars as well. So we'll see how this all plays out. But I know there's a lot of people in Western Montana and a lot of Grizz fans around the state that are hollering, saying, hey, our number 37 is better than your number 37. And it's an interesting jab that Montana State was able to make by making Bryce Stirk number 37. Make no mistake about it, that was intentional. Last year on Media Day, Bryce Stirk posed for his individual picture, holding the board that said the real number 37. So this is not just a coincidence. It's not just that they threw the Washington transfer in a hallowed jersey of the rival. It's tactful, but this was just something that really just stirred the pot, and I thought it was interesting. And again, I think both these guys are great players that work really hard, but I think Bryce Stirk is just an elite player. I think Sam Herder got that one right. Hey, it's the Montana Football Hour. Ryan Tutel is out. Colter Nuanez is guiding you through the second Montana Football Hour of the year. We're going to continue to talk Montana State football. We did a ton on Montana and the Big Sky Conference last week. Right after this, we're going to hear from Jeff Choate, and we're also going to talk about another number controversy, this one about Montana State's new number that is going to be sort of their legacy number that gets passed on, number 41. So we'll get into that, and we'll hear from Jeff Choate. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Florence Coffee Company wants to thank you, our customers, for voting us the Triple Crown in Missoula this year. You awarded us Best Barista, Best Coffee, and Best Coffee Hut. We work hard to serve superior products with all natural ingredients, provide great customer service, and offer a loyalty program like no other. We are a Montana family-owned and operated company, and we look forward to serving you throughout our native western Montana.
Under the big sky, Florence Coffee Company.
Take summer by storm with a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the summer sales event, rebates go as high as $2,000 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on our legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $2,000 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Summer Sales Event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday, and they are celebrating with unprecedented savings on select parts and accessories with the purchase of a new Polaris off-road vehicle, Beta or Husqvarna dirt bike, or any of their new line of Crest pontoon boats. Go to Kurtz Polaris for details. Offers valid in U.S. through 7/23/19 on new 2015 to 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Nothing here to see, just a kid like me, trying to cut some teeth, trying to figure it out. Nothing better to do when I'm stuck on you. I'm here trying to figure it out.
Ryan would be so jealous if he knew we were listening to Royal Blood on the show right now. I've been lobbying for this forever. Ryan Tutel, he's floating on a noodle somewhere in the middle of Flathead Lake. Colter Nuanez guiding you through your Monday. And as always, for the rest of 2019, your Monday will be the Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford in Missoula. Broadcasting that Montana Football Hour right now from the Kurtz Polaris studios. And remember, July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. Really, that's right. 30 years, and they're celebrating by offering 30% off. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of new Polaris off-road vehicles, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bikes, or any pontoon boat. Some restrictions may apply. See Kurtz Polaris for details. Get into Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month long for the Kurtz 30th anniversary sale. Running short on time here in this first hour, so we're going to get right to it. At the Big Sky Kickoff, we interviewed an array of coaches from around the Big Sky Conference. We've shared Bobby Houck from Montana with you. We've shared Jay Hill from Weber State with you. And now it's time to share Jeff Choate from Montana State. The Bobcats picked to finish 4th in the preseason poll by the media. I picked them to finish 3rd. I think that if they can figure out their quarterback situation, they have a legitimate shot at the Big Sky title. I also think they have a schedule that caters well to having some success because they do not play Eastern Washington. They do not play Weber State. And they have a good non-conference schedule, including playing SEMO, who was a playoff team last year, Southeast Missouri. But they don't have the powerhouse non-conference that they've had the last couple of years. They do play Texas Tech in the opener. That could be a tone setter. I don't expect them to go to Lubbock and win that game, but I am just interested to see how whoever wins the quarterback spot reacts to playing, in a Big 12 stadium. That'll be a test, no doubt. But Montana State, I think, is stacked on defense. I think they have elite players at all 3 levels. I think they have a chance to have the best defensive line in the league again. That was the case a year ago. And I think they could be as talented, if not more talented. And hard to say they could be better because last year they had such great toughness and leadership out of guys like Tyrone Fa'anono and Zach Wright and Tucker Yates. But I think that if Chase Benson can take the next step on the inside, If Derek Marks can contribute at a high level playing 3-tech, also on the inside. If Bryce Sterk can move up and down the line, specifically playing strong end, but also splice in at buck. If Jason Skrempos, the Washington transfer, can contribute on the interior. And on the outside, if Armandre Williams is as advertised and can make an impact at the buck end, I think that D-line has a chance to be really elite. The linebackers, I'm interested to see how some of the young guys do. I know that Callahan, O'Reilly, Michael Jobin kind of have the inside track coming out of spring as the inside linebacker spots, but I'm interested to see how true freshman Jahari Martin fits into the mix. Also interested to see if Nolan Askelson, former Class AA Defensive Player of the Year from Billings Senior, if he can crack the rotation. And an outside linebacker, I mean, Troy Anderson, if he really is a full-time guy there, he's going to be a menace coming off the edge. He's going to have to learn the nuances of the position. He's going to have to learn a lot of different things playing that Sam spot for the first time at the college level. But, as we know, one of the most talented athletes in the Big Sky Conference. And then you look at the secondary, I think they have the best man press corner in the Big Sky Conference outside of Jalen Russell from Southern Utah and Greg Munchie Filer, who's going to be a senior. He was a playmaker, especially after he figured out their defense down the stretch. And I think they have the best pair of safeties in the league in Braden Conkle, who I think is the best pure strong safety in the league, and Jackway Allen, who's the best playmaking free safety in the league. And if you have an elite pair of safeties, that really gives you a chance. I also think the Cats have a chance to have one of the top offensive lines in the league, if not the best offensive line in the league. I think it's kind of between them, Eastern Washington, and maybe Weber State. But if you have a great offensive line, that gives you a chance too. All that said, they have to figure out the quarterback situation, and that's obviously going to be a main talking point pretty much every single day until the opener and every single day until they figure it out. Here's Jeff Choate on a lot of that stuff, including the quarterback battle. Jeff Choate from the Big Sky Kickoff a couple weeks back.
Last couple years of this thing, we've talked about maybe you guys trying to fight for some respect, and now it seems like you're getting a little bit more, got some guys on the all-league team, picked a little bit higher in the polls. Does that change the difference in the way you guys approach this season?
Not, absolutely not. I mean, if they played the game, if we were playing for a conference championship right here, yeah, it would matter. But, clearly that's not the case. And so I appreciate the fact that maybe we are getting a little bit more recognition, mostly for our players. Mm-hmm. The team rankings are, I don't know when the last time a team that was picked to win the conference actually won it, but it's you don't necessarily want to be picked to win the conference. Right. And so, not that has any bearing on what takes place. I mean, usually there's a lot of other factors. But I think that what is rewarding is that at least now some of the guys that I feel like are deserving of some recognition or getting some preseason, which, again, doesn't mean anything, except for that it does set these kids up for maybe some postseason honors, and not just for the league, but even getting on some All-American teams and getting on some watch lists and things of that nature.
Beyond the recognition or that kind of stuff, but you do come into this, I think, for you yourself and for the team with expectations, and you have expectations every year, but this year I think maybe some pretty high goals on things that you'd like to achieve. Is that different from years past in terms of the level that your program has now attained to and the group that you have?
Yeah, I think I've tried to be really realistic with our guys. I didn't stand in front of them year one going, "Hey, we're going to put national championship on the top of the pyramid," because I didn't think that was realistic. And year two, probably not as much. Yeah, last year we talked about, hey, we making the postseason. Let's make that a priority for us. And then this year, yeah, clearly we've got to take the next step. And one of the things that I think is interesting is so much of it's going to hinge on this quarterback thing that we're all going to be paying attention to, myself as much as anybody else. But we know how to win no matter who we put back there. And I think that's one of the things our guys have some confidence in, is that, I think our staff maybe hasn't got enough credit for us to be able to do what we did really progressively with basically a revolving door at quarterback. You don't see that. You need that stability. The best teams in the league are going to be the ones that have those return. You look at Case Cook is coming back, and you're like, that guy's been doing it for 6 years. And when he walks in the huddle, there's no question he's the leader of that Northern Arizona offense. And the Meyer kid at UC Davis, that guy's clearly the dude. And no matter who walks into our huddle, Mitch Broad will say, "Run behind me." And I think that's a unique thing that we do have going for us, regardless of how the quarterback thinks. Out.
One thing we talked about last year was that the group of seniors from last year, they seemed to really buy into everything you were trying to make the program about, not just football-wise, but the whole picture. With those guys moving on, what do you expect the identity of this senior class to be? And is it different?
Well, it is to a certain degree, because the one thing that's kind of neat is this is a group of guys that most of them were true freshmen that played our first year. And, there's only, I think, 6 guys that were redshirt freshmen, that were true freshmen, or that were redshirt freshmen my first year in the program. Right. Mitch Brott, Josh Hill, Walker Cozy, Marcus Ferreter. I mean, I think that, there's not very many. So most of the guys that make up this senior class are guys that we recruited that have been in the culture, indoctrinated into it over a period of time. And so it's been fun to watch them kind of put their stamp on things. We had some really good leaders last year. But I think we've got some really strong leaders this year, too. And I think Mitch Brott's really grown into that role. Kevin Cassis, a 2-time captain. Troy Anderson, quiet, but everybody's going to listen when he says something. Travis Johnson, who's kind of a guy that's an interesting guy. But the leadership, Jacque Allen's a leader. Greg Filer's a leader. We've got guys that all over the place. I mean, Josh Hill's not a captain, but trust me, when Josh Hill says something, everybody listens. Any guy that can miss an entire season, show up and be the best player on our defense against North Dakota State, that's kind of an impressive deal. And so we've got good depth, not just in terms of the positional part of it, but even in the leadership aspect.
When you first took over, I know that you weren't shy about talking about some of the maybe talent deficits that you thought you had. It seems like you filled in a lot of those places. How much confidence does that give you guys as a staff just when it comes to game planning and executing?
Well, you're going to need the depth, obviously. I mean, one of the most critical things that I think all the coaches here would say is what is a key to our success this season? Well, probably staying healthy is going to be one of those top things they talk about. And so I just think it's a process. One of the things I had to learn was how to manage the roster. How do you make sure that you got your full allotment of 63 on 85 and to get to your maximum? And that took some work. And it was a little bit, such a moving part at our level that I wasn't used to because it was all head count. It wasn't equivalency at the FBS level. And so you got some other moving parts. So it took me a minute to kind of get that thing figured out. And I think we've got it dialed in pretty good. And I think that helps us with depth. But we've really put a premium on the offensive and defensive lines. Just take as many bodies as you can there and figure it out. And in the secondary is another area that I think we've got to oversign almost in. And so now really the D-line and the secondary were the most talent deficient areas on our roster when I took over. And I feel like right now today, those are probably two of the most experienced deep positions that we have.
The lines is an interesting point because when I first started covering this league, everybody was trying to go so wide open, and now it seemed like there's become a reprioritization of the lines. Even when you look at a team like Eastern that throws the ball a lot, now they're running it more. They've always had good line play, but it seems like with Jay Hill at Weber, you guys, Montana's trying to get back to that. But it's obviously a 10-0 football, but what do you think of just the evolution of the Big Sky kind of going back to more of a traditional physical style of football?
I think you look around and you see what's working, right? And I really actually think it's more of a trickle-down effect from the North Dakota States of the world than it is even from within our own league, because I think everybody's looking at, okay, if we're really good in the Big Sky, that's awesome, and we can put up some big numbers, but can we beat a North Dakota State, a South Dakota State, et cetera? And so I think that's that movement has come this direction, and certainly now with the success that Weber's had, it's definitely in the forefront of everybody's mind.
You haven't broken camp yet, of course, but when you are preparing week one to go to Lubbock, Texas, does that add an element to the entire month of August, as opposed to whether, if you were open with like a D2 school or something along those lines where you can point to, hey, we got to get ready because Texas Tech is coming?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be maybe a little bit more of a heightened sense of urgency, but we can't allow that to affect our long-term preparation. 12-game season. And in the grand scheme of things, Kent Haslam yesterday was giving the committee report talking about, how do you get selected? Because the ultimate deal for us is to make sure that we get into the tournament, right? And like you said, he goes, hey, we're playing, the Big Sky's collectively playing 21 bye games, 21 money games, right? Playing up. But none of those count towards anything for the playoffs. They're only playing 17 interconference games. Those are hugely important for our league. When you look at Eastern opening up against or playing Jacksonville State early, we have SEMO, an OVC champion, Western Illinois. Those are the games that are really going to be impactful. And so we're going to have their attention. I mean, those guys know. They understand it's a Power 5 team, and we're going to their place, and it's going to be a different environment. But I think that as coaches, what we've got to do is make sure that we keep the big picture in mind.
FBS games are reality for Big Sky teams, but this year there's some tremendous FBS games. I mean, you guys are playing a Big 12. I think Florida State's playing Arkansas. You got Idaho going to Penn State. So what do you think of just the caliber of opponents that some of these Big Sky teams are playing?
Yeah, it's an interesting animal this year. I don't think anybody would be like, yeah, let's go do this every year. The 12-game season makes it a little bit unique because generally speaking, a lot of teams are going to have at least one on the schedule, and the 12-game season gives you the opportunity to get two, and that can really, there's certain programs where that's going to make or break their ability to continue to fund the things the way they want to. And so I think it's definitely a financial reality at this level. but it's a little scary. I mean, I feel like both Montana and Montana State, we're fortunate. We got to play our share of FBS opponents, but I wouldn't want to have to play 2 in a year. That's going to be hard for some of these guys.
You've brought in some guys to your coaching staff that I know you're excited about, and especially some guys that are all-time Bobcat types of guys, but it's still change on the staff. What has it taken for you to maintain sort of the direction that you want this program to go with that turnover?
Yeah. Well, hopefully I've been pretty calculated about who I brought in, and for example, Nate Potter at tight ends, he understands what we're trying to do. He's definitely indoctrinated into a very similar culture as a Boise guy, and having Matt and Byron there to kind of get him going on, hey, this is same as different. Here's how Coach Choate does it. This is kind of what it is. Boom, we're rolling. So he's a super smart guy. No issues there. Obviously, Kane was with us year one. Went to a program very similar to ours. Came back. So that's been pretty seamless. And then Bobby and Eric Frazier are the 2 guys that are kind of coming from the outside. And what I think that's important because I'm getting new ideas. This is how we did it at Western. This is how we did it at Northwestern when I was there. This is how we did it at Idaho. Here's maybe a different idea in recruiting, a different idea in travel. And so I think it's been a great mix to have guys that are really familiar with what we're doing and then bring some guys in that can give some fresh ideas. And the energy is awesome, too. Those guys are all so excited about getting to fall. I mean, I've got to kick them out of the office half the time. So it's been really fun to see kind of how this new staff has gelled and mixed together.
Last question, the fact that you guys do have so much coming back, but you are going to have this quarterback battle that everybody's going to have their eyes on. How do you expect fall camp to go, and do you expect the quarterback battle to be separate from the rest of the team, or how do you operate camp at an efficient level when you do have a quarterback battle going on?
Yeah, well, the good news is, as you said, we've got enough depth now. One of the things that we started doing last year, for example, is we 2-spotted everything in fall camp. So we'd have our 1s and 2s on one field and our 3s and 4s on the other. So we really start to kind of get some of our young guys more reps, and we really get to put our spotlight on the 2 guys that are going to be competing, right? So it's not like, hey, Casey, you're in, but you're with the 3-0 line right now. It's like, it's apples to apples. And that's what we've got to do, is give those guys an opportunity to be out there with the same group of guys, evaluate it. How does the team respond to their leadership, regardless of whether they throw a pick or a touchdown, and then just see how they move the ball. And it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be some great competition on both sides. And the offensive and defensive lines will set the tone for a lot of it.
There you go, Jeff Choate, Montana State 4th-year head coach. Hey, we're up against it. The Montana Football Hour winding down. We're going to keep talking college football with Jason Alvin, the voice of the Montana State Bobcats. But don't worry, it's not all Bobcat coverage. We're going to talk broadly about the Big Sky Conference as well. I know a lot of you guys out there love the Cat coverage. I know a lot of you Grizz people here in Missoula maybe don't want to hear some of this stuff, but I know you want to hear it. I know you do, because knowing your enemy is a great thing. In the Big Sky Conference, with the Cats and the Grizz, if they're both great, it's the best thing for the league. The Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford Missoula. Lithia Ford wants to thank everybody for coming out to the Ford Ranger launch party. So many wonderful people came out. Look out for more launch parties for the new Escape and Explorer in coming months. Just announced that Lithia Ford Missoula is the Hurry Up and Save sales event. Customers can enjoy 20% estimated savings on America's best-selling pickup, the F-150. They can also choose to receive 0% financing for 72 months on the 2019 Ford F-150 for well-qualified buyers. Additionally, these savings are available on the 2019 Escape, Edge, and Expedition. Go to Lithia Ford across from Walmart on 93 in Missoula. The Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford. Jason Alvin, voice of the Bobcats, breaking down the Big Sky Conference next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up, pump it up.
Summer is more fun with a cold beverage at your side. Stop into Town Pump and pick up refreshing Pepsi and Coke products, 12 packs for only $4.99. Complete your picnic with Calypso Lemonade, 2 for $3.33. Well stocked and ready for you. Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, oh yeah.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
Since 1980, Fuddruckers has been obsessed with doing one thing better than everyone else, making the world's greatest hamburger. It begins with Fuddruckers' fresh, never frozen premium beef cooked just the way you want it. Dress up the fresh baked bun however you'd like, and you have the world's greatest burger. Come down to Fuddruckers on Thursday, July 25th for a live broadcast of Tutel and Nuanez, presented by Widmer Brothers Brewing, and wash down your meal with the Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen. Fuddruckers, making the world happy one hamburger at a time.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Colter Nuanez. Behind 2 touchdown catches from Fairfield product Derek Simmons, the East posted a 28-22 victory in the 73rd annual East-West Shrine Game in Butte on Saturday night. Future Grizz Ryder Meyer, himself a Fairfield native, scored an 8-yard touchdown run in the second quarter and caught a 39-yard touchdown catch in the fourth for the East final score. Lewistown product Mitchell Norsley threw 3 touchdowns to earn overall MVP honors. The win gives the East a 41-32 all-time lead in the series. During halftime of the Shrine Game, the Montana Football Hall of Fame announced its 9 inductees for the 4th annual induction ceremony in Billings in March. The list includes former Grizz and Buffalo Bills standout Steve Okanuski, former Montana Miami Dolphins kicker Dan Carpenter, former Montana State and Tennessee Titans wide receiver Ken Amato, former Bobcat quarterback and CFL MVP Travis Lulay, and former Bozeman High and Washington Redskins top draft pick Shane Collins in the player category. In the support category, former UM and NFL coach and scout Bob Beers, along with longtime college football broadcaster Brett Musburger, will be inducted. And in the legacy category, Victor Lindskog, who's a native of Roundup who played at Stanford and then the Philadelphia Eagles, will be inducted. And finally, Butte High standout Tommy Millott is committed to Montana State. The athlete took visits to Montana, Montana State, Montana Tech, Carroll College, and Montana Western before choosing the Bobcats.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Thrill of it, always pushing up the hill, searching for the thrill of it. All along, we are calling out now together, never looking down. I'm just in awe of what's in front of me. Is it right now?
Tutel Nuanez, 129 ESPN Missoula. Ryan Tutel, he's out. Colter Nuanez in studio with you. If you missed anything in the first hour, be sure to check out the podcast. Podcast is available on iTunes or the TuneIn Radio app or the station website, 1029ESPN.com. Podcast proudly presented by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel at the Wingate by Wyndham in Missoula. Make you feel at home even when you're not. The stream, if you want to tune in live,
whenever you're ready.
you can find it at 1029ESPN.com. Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. They're the ones that present that stream. If you want to give us a call, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. If you missed anything from that Montana Football Hour in the first hour, We were joined by Anthony Knockreiner from KGEZ up in Kalispell to break down the East-West Shrine Game football all-star game for us in Butte over the weekend. Also talked Dante Olson being added to the Buck Buchanan and Butkus Award list. Shared an interview with Montana State head coach Jeff Choate. And now we're going to talk a little bit more Bobcats and a lot more about the Big Sky Conference as we go to the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Welcome in, good buddy. And now I think we could call him a friend of the show since he's been on a couple times. Jason Alvin, the voice of the Montana State Bobcats. Jason, I know you just landed in L.A. You're in the pandemonium that is Southern California. We appreciate you taking some time. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just sitting in this lovely rental vehicle waiting to chat with you, my friend.
I would say start driving to get yourself a head start, but then I would say don't do that because you're probably going to get lost and you'll just be even more frustrated. So we'll just talk quickly, then you can make your way.
Hey, we're all good. Take your time. It's an hour and 43-minute drive, and that could be 3. I don't know.
You never know when you're in L.A. Hey, we just got back from the Big Sky kickoff last week, and I know that you were running around getting all sorts of interviews as well. So let's start there. Just broadly, what did you think of the event? What sort of things did you was there anything particular that you got out of it or that surprised you that maybe you learned about the league from your experience in Spokane?
Well, I think the league put on a great event out in Spokane. I thought it was top-notch from, making the kids, the student-athletes feel like celebrities, the opportunity for them to have their bowling contests and be there and be interviewed and photo shoots. And I know that stuff is a lot of the stuff, things that drive these kids that they enjoy. And, it was cool to see them out there doing that. And, for me being a first-timer out there, I really enjoyed the event. Getting the opportunity to sit down with some of the premier players in this league. Had a really good chat with Case Cookus, a guy that has an opportunity to reset some record books in the Big Sky Conference if he could stay healthy this year. And he's a guy that I'm really looking forward to watching. And Montana State gets them on September 28th there to open up Big Sky play. But he was a really engaging interview, very interested as well in Dalton Sneed and what he can do at the quarterback position. And Dante Olson, I just heard you trailing in there, added to the Buck Buchanan list. That guy's a phenomenal linebacker, and looking forward to seeing what those guys that were down at the event are able to do throughout the season.
You mentioned Case Cookus in Northern Arizona, and it's so interesting because there's only been a couple guys that have ever even made multiple appearances at the Big Sky kickoff. Well, Case Cookus has been playing quarterback in Northern Arizona for like 14 years now. So this was his fourth Big Sky kickoff, and because he was the National Freshman of the Year, and then he's had this career that's been spectacular when he's healthy, but has been riddled by injuries. And I know that's been something that's sort of held Northern Arizona back. But to me, when I'm looking at this league and I was making my poll and I was breaking everything down, I thought that this year it's more cut and dry in terms of the contenders versus the have-nots in this league. There's been so much parity in the league. We've had so many teams, including a lot of the new teams like Cal Poly, North Dakota, Southern Utah, that have risen up and been playoff contenders and even Big Sky Conference championship contenders. And to me, it seems like the league has sort of revolved back to being more status quo and more the powers that were are the powers that are. I think the Cats and the Grizz both have a chance to take that next step and get back into the postseason picture. I think Eastern Washington, because of their schedule and because of the tradition they've been able to forge here this last decade or so, I think they're still going to be in the mix as a postseason team. I think Weber State, back-to-back Big Sky champions, even though they've been anemic on offense because they've been so good on defense, so good on special teams. I think they're in the mix as well. And then UC Davis, Dan Hawkins has got it rolling, and he's got himself, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the league in Jake Mayer. And then you look at the rest of the league. The only team that I think really is kind of an anomaly, a team that's just a dark horse, a team that maybe I don't know what to think of, is Northern Arizona, because they have this great quarterback in Case Cookus. They lose a lot on defense, but more than anything, they have a storyline that most college programs have never experienced, and that is replacing a coach who's been there for 2+ decades. Jerome Sowers was the coach at NAU for 21 seasons, and most guys don't ever last that long in college football, period. But then you look at trying to replace that guy. I just have no idea what to think of NAU, but you talk about that first game against the Bobcats. I think that is a huge game in the league, because I think if Montana State can win that thing and get rolling a little bit, I think they have a chance then to really build some momentum going into the later part of their schedule, because I do think that the next 4 or 5 weeks is conducive to success. But then on the other hand, you could make a statement there by beating a Bobcat team that's going to be ranked coming into the year and a team that seems to be on the rise. So do you have any gauge on NAU, and how strange do you think this situation is with Chris Ball taking over for a guy that's been there since the 90s?
Well, again, he is a guy, when I talked to him at Media Day, he said Case Cook is a big reason he took this job, because he has a quarterback in place that can take this team and maybe surprise some people, like you said, because the teams you talked about, the separation, the haves and the have-nots. What are all the haves? What do they have that the have-nots don't? They've got quarterback play right now. You look at the top of this league. You mentioned Jake Mayer, Eric Berry at Eastern Washington, Case Cookus, Dalton Snead over at Montana. All those guys, and what is Weber State missing from being talked about as maybe one of those national title contenders? They're missing the consistent quarterback play. They got some good play from Jake Constantine late in the year after the injury to Caden Jenks. But, they've got an offense that could be ready to take that next step if they can find that quarterback. And I think that's what all these teams have. But Northern Arizona is a team that you look at with good quarterback play. They have a lot of depth in the secondary coming back, which is something that you have to have in this league with as many high-flying, versatile offenses that are here. It's Case Cook is a guy that can take your team to the next level, provided he stays healthy.
And the unbalanced schedule in the Big Sky is so interesting because you don't always play everybody, and oftentimes the league title is determined not only on how you do, but how a lot of the other teams in the league do against common opponents. We've seen some teams rise up and go 4-4 or 5-3 in league. I mean, Idaho State winning 5 league games last year had a huge impact on the league title race, even though Idaho State didn't make the playoffs, because they knocked everybody that they beat down one notch. And you look at NAU's schedule, they play at Montana State, they play at Weber State, they play at Eastern Washington. So they play 3 of the top contenders in the league on the road. But if they can steal some of those, that could have an impact in the postseason picture. But let's talk about the other teams in this league. Let's start with Eastern Washington. They lose 28 seniors from a year ago. They were the Big Sky Conference co-champions. They made it all the way to the national championship game. And they lose a ton of guys off that team, but they also return 4 starters on the offensive line, and they return Eric Berry at quarterback. The skill positions, when they're in flux at Eastern Washington, I never put much stock in that, because the guys that have been the next guys up have been pretty dang good. And defensively, it seems like they've made some progress. But that said, they have new coordinators on both offense and defense, so I think it's a little bit. There is a little bit more question mark than other teams atop the league. But Eastern Washington, they don't have to play either the Cats or the Grizz. That's an advantage as well. What do you think is some of the strengths of Eastern Washington? In your mind, what's the biggest question mark with EWU?
Well, I think the biggest question mark is up the middle of their defense. They lose JT Tioli up there at the nose tackle position. Then you lose Kettner Cup at linebacker. And then you go to the safety, and Mitch Fettig is gone. All guys that were major contributors on that defense. And you mentioned 28 seniors. That's tough to replace. But again, so much of this game now is quarterback play. And they've got a guy that showed it on the biggest stages that he was ready to go. You talk about a pressure situation coming in and replacing Gage Gubrud when he gets injured, and Eric Berry has this season that he does last year. I think he could be very special in this league now that he has those 7-8 games under his belt, a guy that makes that next jump that could just strike fear into offensive corners. You mentioned the wide receivers. They lose Simba Webster, but I'm not too concerned about what Eastern does on offense because they've done it for so long. They've put points on the board far too long in this league to really doubt what Coach Best is doing up there and his schemes. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think they'll be able to score. And then, as you mentioned, they have a great schedule that plays out for them.
Weber State. To me, I think you already addressed it. Weber State has been the best defense in the league the last 2 years, maybe even the last 3 years. They've had the best secondary, the best linebackers. They just recruited really well on that side of the ball. I think they scored almost 10 non-offensive touchdowns a year ago. Rashid Shaheed is a touchdown waiting to happen, even with teams kicking away from him. Josh Davis scored a punt return touchdown a year ago. They had multiple defensive touchdowns. I mean, this team was so good that they held Eastern Washington to 3 points, and they won 14-3. And that was one thing that Bruce Barnum told me, Portland State head coach, at the Big Sky kickoff. He said, the reason Weber State is what they are is because Jay Hill has no problem beating you 17-14. 14-7. He's not caught up in the I got to score 35 points a game. This high octane offenses that have overtaken college football. But to me, the fact that Weber State hasn't been able to find a definitive answer at quarterback, they've had solid guys like Stephen Cantwell, but they haven't had a guy that's an elite difference maker. To me, that's the thing that's holding them back. How do you see Weber State this year?
I agree with you 100% in everything you just said. They do lose a huge impact linebacker in LeGrand Toia there on that defensive side, but they're going to be able to replace players that they lose. They're kind of like the Eastern Washington on defense. They have this system that they just keep running through. I think they're a quarterback away from being an upper echelon offensive team. They have Josh Davis, the guy that was the National Freshman of the Year a season ago, won the Jerry Rice Award. You mentioned Rashid Shaheed, a guy that punt returns, kick returns. You get him the ball on a jet sweep. He is maybe the fastest guy in the league. If not, there might not be a lot of guys faster than him. And if he can shake loose and make big plays, they've got a deep offensive line coming back. It just comes down to, does Jake Constantine take that next step, and what can they do to develop, or do they have somebody there that can beat out Constantine and Jenks and take that offense to that next level?
UC Davis, they go as Jake Mayer goes, but they were better on defense than people gave them credit for. To me, the biggest question mark is just how do you replace Keelan Doss? But it seems like Julian Harrell, who was a preseason All-Big Sky, named to the preseason All-Big Sky team, seems like he sort of fits that mold. I don't know if he's going to necessarily go out and catch 115 passes like Keelan Doss did, but he's got a similar body type, and he's got a great quarterback throwing to him. Do you see any weaknesses in UC Davis, though? And if so, what are they?
Well, apparently I got in this rental car, and it must have some sort of sensor because you're stealing all my thunder here with what I see. I think the loss of Keelan Doss is major for that team. He had over 1,400 receiving yards last year. That's 700 more than Harrell there. He had 46 more catches, than the next closest receiver. Is somebody ready to take that step? Jake Mayer is good, but he was really good because he had Keelan Doss as well, a guy that has, from all indication, shown big flashes at Raiders camp, and they've been really impressed with him, a guy that could be an undrafted free agent that sticks to that team. So I think they're going to win it with offense. If they do, they're a team that's going to put points on the board. They have the preseason favorite for the player of the year in Jake Mayer again. There he won it last year, but Keelan Doss is that big time playmaker that everybody in this league wants. Another school that lost a guy very similar to him, Northern Arizona, lost Emmanuel Butler, another guy that could make plays and big things happen at receivers. So those guys in this league are hard to come by when they're as physically gifted as Keelan Doss is.
No doubt. It's Jason Alvin, the voice of the Montana State Bobcats, joining us on the Rangitsch Brothers RV phone line as we continue to break down the Big Sky Conference. Now we got to get to the Montana schools. I'll ask you first about the Grizz. What's your take of the Grizz? You said you like Dante Olson, you like Dalton Sneed, meeting those guys, and obviously they're great players. What else do you think of just Montana in general?
Well, I think they've got a chip on their shoulder as to the way last season ended. I don't think there's any question to that. I don't know if you can script a game of that magnitude, of that type of rivalry, that type of ending to where, they score a touchdown to go ahead and the timeout and the next play, it's a fumble. I mean, I've watched a lot of football games in my life. I don't even know how many. But to see something like that happen in that type of game with the stakes that we're riding, it was something that has to drive the University of Montana players this offseason. And I think in that last drive, Dalton Sneed showed what type of quarterback he is. He got sacked multiple times to force third and longs on that last drive, but he just kept hammering back and coming at you and put that team in a position to win the game. And if it wasn't for a brilliant stroke of clock management by Jeff Choate, they probably do, and they're in the playoffs. And we're singing a different tune about the way Montana State finished that game. I mean, they came so close and then gave it. So I think the biggest thing that they've got to do is they've got to shore up the offensive line to protect Dalton Sneed, because he showed what type of gamer he is, what type of competitor he was, and why they were able to let a really good quarterback get gone in Gresh Jensen. He proved that he was the guy behind center there for Montana. And I think if they can protect him better this year, they gave up 25 sacks a year ago, then then they could be a team there standing at the end, again, depending on that schedule, staking claim to a possibility of hoisting a Big Sky championship.
And last thing for you, Jason Alvin, voice of the Montana State Bobcats, joining us on the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Last time you were on the show, we talked about Montana State's quarterback situation. I think we're both in agreement, and I think a lot of people around the league are in agreement of the strengths and weaknesses of Montana State. They seem pretty cut and dry. The lines seem very good. I think the defensive secondary is going to be elite. And the biggest question mark is the quarterback. But to me, the other factor that's going to be really interesting is, can the Bobcats build momentum early in their season? If they do, how does that momentum help them? Because they've surged down the stretch in November the last 2 years, but it's taken them a little while to gain that October momentum. This year, the schedule is a little bit more favorable. They have a chance to gain some momentum, but they also aren't going to be that chippy underdog that's trying to prove people wrong. They're going to be a team that I think a lot of people are gunning for with big expectations. How much do you think the expectations that come into the season for Montana State have on this Bobcat team?
I think they're going to have to try to live up to them, because they were top 10 in Athlon's poll, top 15, and so there are expectations for this team. I think I don't know the right way to phrase it, whether the quarterback picture became clearer with the departure of Chris Murray, or it muddles it up even more, because you got guys in Tucker Rovig who has 2.5 games of experience, and Casey Bauman who has 1 drive of experience. So if one of those two guys wins the job, Ruben Beltran's in that mix as well, and then he has even less experience than Casey Bauman. So whatever one of those guys wins that job, they're going to go down to Texas Tech and be, the underdog in that game, so they can build that up. But they're going to be facing a very good elite-type defense of the Big 12. And then you have to come home and face a playoff team from last year in the FCS in Southeast Missouri State. So those 2 early games could be something where if you start 1-1, feel pretty good about yourself. If you start 0-2 and there's a little bit of shakiness in the quarterback play, then what do? Do you go to Macomb and ride it and see how that game goes, with the possibility of staring an 0-3 in the face? I don't know. That's why they paid Jeff Choate to make those decisions. I just get to talk about them, and I don't envy that. But I think they've got 2 guys. Tucker Rovig in his start against Wagner last year, 310 yards, 3 touchdowns, looked really, really good. Against South Dakota State, didn't look as good, but at the same time, I don't know if there's a lot of people that can go into that stadium against that team from a season ago and make their first collegiate start and look good.
He is Jason Alvin. He'll be bringing you all that coverage from those road games, home games, and all of the above as the new voice of the Montana State Bobcats. Hey, I know you're in sunny Southern California. I know you're trying to get in some vacation time before this whirlwind hits us both. Best of luck out there, my friend, and thanks so much for being with us.
I appreciate it, sir. Good talking with you.
Montana Football Hall of Fame announced 9 new inductees for our upcoming ceremony in March at the Shrine Game on Saturday in Butte. We'll tell you who they are and much more after this.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires, or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds. You've chosen the caterer, addressed the invitations, and picked out a cake. But have you decided where to bank? Farmer State Bank offers just what you need as you start your new life together. Checking and savings accounts, electronic banking options, the latest tech, even locally approved mortgages. And with 9 Western Montana locations, there's a Farmer State Bank where you live, work, and play. Congratulations from all of us at Farmer State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
The Big Sky Breakdown at SkylineSportsMT.com continues to give you the inside look from around the Big Sky Conference and the state of Montana. The most in-depth podcast in the Treasure State gives you multiple episodes each week year-round with commentary, analysis, interviews, and entertainment from around one of the most storied conferences in the West.
Whether it's full uncut interviews with Montana State head football coach Jeff Choate or Travis Secure's thoughts on his outstanding Montana men's basketball team, everything you need to hear is available on the Big Sky Breakdown. Take a look inside the best stories in the conference and the most detailed analysis in the state. The Big Sky Breakdown, it has you covered.
Whether it's X's and O's acumen of Brooks Nuanez or the comedic banter of Ryan Tutel or the dry humor of Andrew Houghton.
And don't forget the best connections to everybody that matters in the sports world across the Big Sky Conference from Colter Nuanez. And by the way, thank you for calling me funny.
You're welcome. The Big Sky Breakdown will present you with all of it and more at SkylineSportsMT.com.
The Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by Town Pump Food Stores and Selway Armory.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Colter Nuanez. Behind 2 touchdown catches from Fairfield product Derek Simmons, the East posted a 28-22 victory in the 73rd annual East-West Shrine Game in Butte on Saturday. Future Grizz Ryder Meyer, himself a Fairfield native, scored an 8-yard touchdown run in the second quarter and caught a 39-yard touchdown pass in the fourth for the East's final score with 6.5 minutes left. Lewistown product Mitchell Norsliden threw 3 touchdowns to earn overall MVP. The win gives the East a 41-32 all-time lead in the series. During halftime of the Shrine Game, the Montana Football Hall of Fame announced 9 men to be inducted in the 4th annual induction ceremony in Billings in March. The list includes former Grizz and Buffalo Bills standout Steve Okoniski, former Montana and Miami Dolphins kicker Dan Carpenter, former Montana State and Tennessee Titans linebacker and long snapper Ken Amato, former Bobcat quarterback and CFL MVP Travis Lulay, and former Bozeman High and Washington Redskins top draft pick Shane Collins in the player category. In the support category, former UM and NFL head coach and scout Bob Beers and longtime college football broadcaster Brent Musburger will be inducted. And in the legacy category, Victor Lindskog of Roundup, who played at Stanford and then the Philadelphia Eagles, will be inducted. And finally, Butte High standout Tommy Malott has committed to Montana State. He chose the Bobcats over the Grizzlies, Montana Tech, Carroll College, and Montana Western.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Ryan's gone, but I'm still late. We're getting caught up, though. It's a Monday. We're all a little bit behind on a Monday. Ryan Tutel, he's out floating on a noodle somewhere in the middle of Flathead Lake enjoying a vacation. Must be nice to be an old, grizzled veteran like him. Just getting vacation upon vacation upon vacation. I haven't even taken one yet. He went to the Philippines for a year, it seemed like. Yeah. He'll be back tomorrow, though. I know you miss him. Colter Nuanez here in studio with you. And, of course, it's the Kurtz Polaris Studios. You already knew that. But maybe you didn't know this. Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. That's right, 30 years. And they're celebrating this month by offering up to 30%, really, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicles, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bikes, or any pontoon boat. Some restrictions may apply, so see KurtzPolaris.com for details. Get into Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month long for the Kurtz 30th anniversary sale. Go check them out. Before we get into some of these Montana Football Hall of Fame inductions, I want to just revamp one of the conversations we were having a little bit earlier. If you missed anything from the first hour or the first hour and a half of the show, Great segment with Anthony Knockreiner recapping the Shrine game and also a little preview on Class AA football in Montana. Also talked about Dante Olson being added to the not only Buck Buchanan watch list for Montana Grizzlies, but also the Butkus Award watch list. Very prestigious honor. Only the second guy ever for the Grizzlies named to that list. Also heard from Jeff Choate, Montana State head coach. And we also had Jason Alvin, the voice of the Montana State Bobcats, on the line, breaking down the Big Sky Conference race as a whole. One thing I teased in the opener but skimmed over because we were just running up against it. We talked about the 37 controversy that's going on right now on Twitter and social media and the message boards. Sam Herder, Hero Sports, he's naming the best player at each number, 99 through 1, counting down the days to the season, all the best FCS players. And number 37 days out from kickoff, Bryce Sterk from Montana State was the guy who was recognized. And I think that's right. I think Bryce Sterk is the best 37 in the country. And Montana obviously has great tradition with their number 37 jersey, passed down from players like Tim Houck through guys like Jason Crebo and Andy Pedic and Ceshay Pisher, Lauren Utterback, Carson Bender, Jordy Tripp, Zach Wagaman, and now Jesse Sims from down in the Bitterroot Valley. And every single one of those guys, great players. And Jesse Sims, great player. But there's a lot of Grizz fans out there hollering and yelling about how Sims deserved it over Bryce Sterk, and I just don't agree. But if you want to hear that argument, you want to hear my take on that, go ahead and check out the podcast presented by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, and you can listen to that from the first segment. But the other thing I wanted to touch on was a new and actually maybe a little bit old tradition for Montana State as well. Number 41 is a number that has been worn by a Montana native the last 9 years. Brad Daly wore it for 5 years. He had an absence from the program in one of those years, but played in it for 4 seasons, including his 2013 Buck Buchanan Award-winning season. And then Grant Collins, Bozeman High product, who was a 4-year starter at Montana State. He's worn the number for the last 5 years as well. And now Montana State is going to take that number 41, which represents Montana as the 41st state admitted to the Union, and they're going to pass it down just like Montana does with their number 37 jersey. Braden Conkle, a Belgrade product who will be a senior strong safety for the Bobcats and a team captain this year. He'll be the one wearing number 41. So he switches from 18, the number he's worn for the last 3 seasons as a starter, and he will wear that number 41. Jeff Choate, he said, I like traditions in college football. At Boise State, where he was an assistant, we introduced the hammer, and Montana State has something like that. I really like the rodeo team leading us onto the field on horseback, and I wanted to put our staff stamp on this thing. So it dawned on me last November, as I was giving a little history lesson on our helmets, that we've had some spectacular players wear that number 41 jersey. And in the recent past, they are from Montana. We have the Block M on the team's helmet, a tribute to the M on Mount Baldy. And we've added 1889, the year Montana became a state. And we also have the 3-7-77, indicative of the vigilante and state law enforcement, the 406 area code. And now we've had 41 on the back of the helmets. So just putting some of those things together, I thought it would be a really cool way to honor our state and recognize a player who has done some really good things as a Bobcat. I know that Montana State people, there's been a lot of good feedback over this. When you trace back through the history, it's not just Brad Daly and Grant Collins that have worn the number. Sam McCullum, who was a inductee to our Montana Football Hall of Fame last year, he's a Kalispell native that played for the Cats in the early 1970s, a great receiver who then went on to play for the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL and worked with the Players Union in the NFL for quite some time. He wore that jersey. And Ron Murai, a Miles City native who was on the 1976 National Championship team at Montana State, he wore that number 41 jersey as well. So I think this is a cool tradition that is getting revamped as well as solidified. And I know some people on the other side of the rivalry, the Montana side of the rivalry, will say, hey, they're just copying us, they're just stealing our tradition. But if you really break it down, there's programs from all over the country that have number traditions, and I think that this is cool for Montana State. I think it represents something good. You know, I think that the 37, it has gained its own legacy, obviously. I mean, you see 37 jerseys all over Washington Grizzly Stadium. And it was the number that Craig Paulson wore that then he passed on to Todd Erickson, that then he passed on to Tim Houck. And those guys really got that prestige rolling. But there's no real representation of 37 besides that designated hitter, that Montana defensive player that just has that toughness and that grit ingrained in him This one seems a little bit more symbolic just in terms of the fact that there's a direct correlation. Montana, the 41st state in the Union. And I don't know. We'll see how this thing plays out. But Braden Conkle, a great fit for that jersey. Speaking of Sam McCollum, as a guy who was inducted into the Montana Football Hall of Fame, as many of you know out there, I'm on the board of directors for the Montana Football Hall of Fame. Help them with a lot of their biography work. I have some say in nominations and selections as well. And if you haven't been, come on out to the Montana Football Hall of Fame in Billings. The actual Hall of Fame is in Bozeman at the Universal Athletic Store. So you can go there. You can check it out. Display of jerseys and helmets and shirts. There's a kiosk there with information all about and all the stories that myself, as well as Mick Holeen, the former voice of the Grizz, and several other guys have put together on all the inductees. Really cool deal. But if you haven't been to the event, come check it out. This thing has grown exponentially, and it's become a really, really big event. There was over 800 people there a year ago, and really, really fun. The stories are great. The food is great. The night is great. It's just a great atmosphere. Last year, interviewing Thatcher Slay and then getting to talk to him at the banquet. I mean, when I was a kid, when I was 13 or 14 years old, Thatcher Slay was one of my all-time favorite players for the Grizz. And getting to see his bear claws that he still wears around his neck and to hear his stories is tremendous. And there's been so many great guys from Montana, Montana State, from all over the state that played out of state for college. And it's a great event. Late March, I'll get you the official date here once we get that thing solidified. But get a ticket or get a table because it's a great event. You will enjoy yourself. The stories are unforgettable, and the night itself is great. So I'll get you more details on that in future upcoming weeks. But this year, here's the guys that we have now selected to induct into this year's Hall of Fame. Steve Okanuski, who's a former Grizz who played the majority of his NFL career for the Buffalo Bills, is one of them. We also got former Montana and Miami Dolphins / Buffalo Bills kicker Dan Carpenter, who left Montana as the all-time leading scorer in the history of not only UM but of the Big Sky Conference. And he's a guy that went on to have a nearly 10-year NFL career. He was a Pro Bowler a couple times in his career and an outstanding kicker, definitely one of the greatest kickers in the history of Big Sky Conference football, and a Helena High native, or Helena High product, Helena native. We also are inducting former Montana State and Tennessee Titans linebacker and long snapper Ken Amato, a guy who played in the 1970s and was a great Bobcat. Former Bobcat quarterback and former CFL and Grey Cup MVP Travis Lulay, who had a storied career at Montana State, broke in the lineup as a true freshman, led the Cats to their first win over Montana in 16 years, snapped the streak in Missoula in 2002, a 10-7 victory for the Bobcats, engineered by a true freshman in Travis Lulay. And he went on to beat the Grizzlies 3 out of 4 times, brought the Bobcats back to prominence, sharing Big Sky Conference titles, winning Big Sky Conference titles, going to the playoffs. So he had a great career there at Montana State. And then our fifth player is Shane Collins. Shane Collins is the only one of only 2 guys besides Tanner Roderick, both of them, ironically, Bozeman High products, who won Gatorade Player of the Year in multiple sports. Shane Collins was Gatorade Player of the Year in both football and track and field. He went to Arizona State, where he was not only an All-American football player as a defensive end, but he was also a national champion shot put thrower, one of the great shot put throwers in the world during his prime. He was drafted by the Washington Redskins, played in the NFL. He's the father of Grant Collins, who wore that number 41 jersey that we previously talked about. And Shane's a great dude who I knew in Bozeman, and he's well-deserving of getting into this Montana Football Hall of Fame, one of the great athletes to ever come out of the state of Montana. We also have a support category and a legacy category, the latter being for deceased people that deserve to be inducted. And in the support category, this year we're inducting former Montana as well as NFL coach and scout Bob Beers, a guy who's been around the scene of Montana for a long time. Even now, with his work at the NFL, he's been scouting for a variety of teams, but he's always at the pro days. He's always in the press box. And he's a guy that's made the rounds extensively all over the state of Montana. And our other contributor category is football broadcaster Brent Musburger. Probably don't need any more details on him because I guarantee if you watch college football at any point in the last 30 or 35 years, you've heard Brent Musburger on the call. He's one of the all-time great play-by-play guys in the history of college football. And finally, in our legacy category, Victor Lindskog. He's a Roundup native who played his college ball at Stanford and then played for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that'll be really cool to have him inducted into the Montana Football Hall of Fame as well. Colter Nuanez broadcasting to you from the Kurtz Polaris studios. We're wrapping this thing up. Ryan Tutel, he's out. He's at Flathead Lake. He'll be back tomorrow A couple more thoughts for you, though, before we let you go for the evening. Got the Missoula Bruins, they're in some need. So I'll tell you more about that on the other side, and a huge Pioneer League baseball showdown series here in Missoula starting tomorrow with the Missoula Osprey playing the Idaho Falls Chuckers. Missoula Osprey, Missoula Bruins next.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up, pump it up.
Don't think you have time for lunch? Town Pump has your back right down the road. Burritos in the deli are 2 for $2.22. Wash it down with your favorite fountain-sized drink, any size, for just $1. Pick up lunch or a snack on your way to summer adventure at Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
Everybody knows that high school sports generate suspense, excitement, and drama.
They also generate higher grade point averages, stronger work habits, and greater self-esteem.
Everybody knows that high school sports give us more value for our entertainment dollar.
They also give us leaders committed to strengthening communities right here in Montana. The true value of playing sports in school can't be measured in wins and losses or dollars and cents. Studies show that participation in sports, along with other extracurricular activities, is one of the best ways to teach leadership, cooperation, accountability, and other invaluable life skills. Don't just stand on the sidelines. Encourage the young people you know to get in the game. When you do, you'll be helping them get ahead in life. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Montana High School Association and the Montana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Tutel and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes. 1029ESPN.com.
Intros to any song ever written. Gotta love it. Led Zeppelin, one of the all-time greats. I remember calling and asking for that song to Craig Johnson back in the mid-1990s. I hope Craig is out there enjoying his retirement. Stepped away from the trail. If you had not heard, 40-plus years in radio, a Montana legend. I remember being a little kid organizing my baseball cards and calling Craig, asking him to play When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin. Great memories. Tutel Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Missoula. Ryan Tutel, he's out. He's at Flathead Lake. He'll be back tomorrow. Colter Nuanez guiding you through your Monday evening. Missed anything in the first hour or the show, or any of the show for that matter, it's available on our podcast, and that's available on the TuneIn Radio app, on Spotify, or on iTunes, or you can find it at the station website. Just click on the podcast tab once you go to 1029ESPN.com. podcast is presented by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. We're broadcasting to you live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. It's the 30th birthday of Kurtz Polaris, and that means they're celebrating in style, offering 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new off-road vehicle through Polaris. Get the details, kurtzpolaris.com, and get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month long for that 30th anniversary sale. Just a few minutes left before we kick you over. We're going to have the Missoula Osprey on here in about an hour. And on that note, it's a really, really big series for the Missoula Osprey as they take on the Idaho Falls Chuckers. They return home for their fourth homestand of the season, and they start tonight. I misspoke earlier. I said last night, but they start tonight. They're in the middle of a tight race with the Chuckers to see who will be tabbed as the first-half champions and clinch the first playoff spot for 2019. The O's, they currently sit one game behind Idaho Falls in the first half standings. There's 4 games left in the first half. They're all against Idaho Falls. They're all here in Missoula. The O's have their sights set on that first half series win against the Chuckers and ultimately the first half crown. So be sure to go check them out. They got home games for about a week plus here and a bunch of fun promotions going on as well. Also talked about the Missoula Bruins. They need some help. They are currently in need of homes for at least 10 players for the 2019-2020 season. Bledding is not only one of the utmost importance to every junior hockey team across the country, but it's also an incredibly rewarding experience for players and families alike. Missoula Bruins are hoping Missoula families will join them Tuesday, that's tomorrow, at Highlander Brewing out there off North Reserve, beginning at 6 p.m. You can learn more about being a Bruins Belay family for 2019-2020 to help these young men continue to chase their hockey and academic dreams. Come on out and meet Bruins head coach Cliff Cook. He's a friend of the show. He attended our live broadcast last week. Appreciate him for coming on down. Also, coordinator Colleen Scheel and a couple current Belay families and more. A family that opens their home to out-of-state or out-of-country players for the Bruins. That's what a Belay family is, and that's what they're looking for. For many of these players, this will be their first time away from home, and they will need a stable living environment for them to move to Montana while they pursue the next step in their developing hockey careers. These young men are between 16 and 20 years old. The season begins with training camp in late August and ends in mid-April. Families are welcome to house more than one player if possible, and families receive a monthly stipend plus Bruins season tickets for the entire household. So if you want to get involved in that, head on over to Highlander Brewing tomorrow night, 6 p.m. And you can learn more about how you can help the Missoula Junior Bruins host some players for the 2019-2020 season. I know people that have done that before, and they think it's a rewarding experience. There's hosts for both the Osprey and the Bruins players, and it's a cool deal. You get to meet some driven and potentially really athletic and successful young men, and you get to help them along as well. And it's a great way to get back to your community. So if you can, head on over there. Highlander Brewing, 6 p.m. tomorrow night. I'll remind you tomorrow as well. It's been a fun show. Shout out to Reese there in the back playing all my favorite music. I gave him the list before the show, and he nailed it. I love it. It's all good, and it's a fun show even with Ryan out. So just go ahead and head on over to 1029ESPN.com. If you missed anything in the show, you can check out the podcast. It's always there for you, ready to roll. And I can't wait to have Ryan back in the saddle tomorrow. We're getting down to it. It's going to be football season before we know it, and it's going to be an exciting one. I'm excited for football. We got a lot of NFL stuff to talk about. I got some NBA stuff I'm burning on as well. And, of course, we have our Big Sky Conference stuff that we'll always be burning on. I got a couple other things. I want to get Ryan's opinion on some of the takes that we had today as well. I want to ask him about some of these controversy is the wrong word. Some of these numbers that we got, the traditional numbers, and some of the arguments we got going on, because I'd love to get his take on that stuff as well. Tutel Nuanez, Colter Nuanez for Ryan Tutel. Have yourself a great evening. Missoula Osprey, first pitch, 7:05. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizzlies, and the voice of the Osprey on the call. Tutel Nuanez.